Good afternoon, everybody. Okay. Oh gosh. Patience. Hi. Okay, we keep this casual, but as the first speaker today, I really wish to take the honor to ask you guys all to stand up for 1 minute to give due respect to the 18 astronaut and cosmonaut who has lost their life in venturing and pioneering to space for mankind. Could we all stand up? And 1 minute of silence. Thank you very much. I think it's very important to do the right thing first. Today is to remind us of mankind first landing on the moon, but we must always remember the brave men and women who have risked their life in doing that for mankind. And just a few days ago, I was telling some journalists again that, and as the one mass people says, there's no such thing as a safe space mission. So with that ado, let me go into what our team, a few very crazy, very brave Singaporeans who have tried very hard to bring a first Singaporean to space in our own modest way. So this is the same format that NASA or the Russians used to fly their stratospheric balloon up to space in the 1933, around there. Because if you group all of us together and we try to go into space for the first time, this idea will naturally come to you. But of course, you have to fight the tyranny of space, which is first vacuum, and then lack of oxygen, there's no atmosphere, and also the extreme cold. Because up there, at least at 60,000 feet or 20 kilometers, is already minus 70 to 80 degrees Celsius. So it's very cold up there. It's very lonely. The reason also why I asked you guys to stand up for 1 minute is to feel that how long 1 minute can be. Because at the last of this slide, I'm going to show a short video of 3 minutes, which describes the flight itself on 31st May, which lasted 19 minutes while we crossed 24,000 feet in a small capsule. And that 19 minutes is like forever. Okay, so in 2013 February, we announced for the first time that we are going to attempt to send a first Singaporean to space, okay? And that is by using stratospheric balloon, just like the Russian did. But how did this idea come about? It was because we were then working on test dropping the hypersonic space plane from Airbus Group, and the most cost-effective way of doing this, instead of using expensive helicopter, especially those from Eurocopter, is to use a stratospheric balloon. So after announcing, we have many volunteers, as you can see. Many of them are ladies, you know. Ladies are actually quite brave. And we have 150 volunteers. Then, as you can see, some good-looking guys too. Okay, and as you know, in the requirement of the astronaut, there's about 20 attributes. One of the requirements is that the astronaut have to be good-looking, okay? Yeah, because you don't want to come back from space and scare the shit out of everybody, you know. So there you are. And coincidentally, these guys here, where we pick up the videos from the 150, end up to be the finalists, coincidentally. Okay, slowly. Then we try to eliminate the candidates by trying to kill them, okay? So we bring them to do parafoil guiding, parafoil jumping, because this is the only soft wing method that will test the pilot's skill in bringing a system back instead of fixed wing. And when we reached that stage, we were 15 of us. During this exercise, which we have 2 weeks in Vietnam with their champion, only one nearly died, that's all, okay? I mean, sometimes some will die, you know. I was briefing SIA pilots, and they were asking, how many guys are you sending up? I say, 1. And then they say, then why did you interview so many? Then I look at them very seriously, and I said, sometimes some will die, you know. So then after that, those who survive, we bring them for deep sea diving, because you have to really get used to breathing pure oxygen, which is a very non-trivial matter. Not everybody can breathe pure oxygen. Then after that, 2014, you realize that every 6 months something happens, because in our team, we believe to walk the talk. As I always say in Singapore, there are already too many people talking. You know, a lot of them can talk and talk very well, but there are not enough doers. So we want to show an example to walk the talk. So we display the capsule in Sentosa Resort World, and the CEO came up to me and asked, "Oh, why are you so nice? Why you let us have your capsule here for free and all that?" Then I look at him and I say, "You want to know the real reason or the bullshit?" You know, and I told him that the real reason is my house have not enough parking slot to keep 3 capsules. You know, so we built 3 of them actually. And this is very interesting. We went to India. We met up with the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research in their nuclear district. Coincidentally, most of these balloon facilities are always near their nuclear research area, for whatever reason. And at first, the chairman didn't want to see me, but I flew in alone to Hyderabad. I think I'm the only Chinese-looking guy on the whole plane. And I queued up in the long custom queue, and I was actually queuing up on the Indian side. So everybody was staring at me, you know, and I did that because the tourist side was just too long. The queue was ridiculously long. So I told myself, let's try. So I was standing on the Indian queue, and everybody was looking at me, you know. And when I reached the custom, the guy tells me that, he asked me, so are you really Indian? I said, no, far from that. Then after some talk, he says that, okay, I will clear you for your bravery, you know. So I got through the custom quite fast, and I waited. It was 4 a.m. I reached the office 7. They were having board meeting. I squatted outside really till 7 p.m. And the chairman was asking, is that Chinese-looking guy still outside there stalking me, you know? So he has no choice, and when we met, it was love at first sight, you know? So we talked a lot about technical stuff and all that, and he helped us to fly the first 3 rats from New York. Anybody from USA? Okay, anyway, they were very expensive rats, okay? So they flew from New York, probably business class, all female. I learned that accompanied by 2 doctors, very serious. When you fly a man, no one give a shit, okay? But when you fly a rat, it's very serious. So unfortunately, the first 3 died, all right? And it is due to the famous depressurization in space, which whereby your blood will start to boil, and you will have bubbles in your vein, and you will have severe stroke. I remember I was explaining to Minister Josephine Teo many years ago when I was showing him for she was the first minister I spoke to. After presenting the hypersonic space plane demonstrator, I showed him this clip of the show Up. You know, that cartoon show whereby you have a big balloon and this man was, I thought, trying to send the wife up, you know, something like that. So, but then we stayed on for 46 days, myself alone. And we hacked the system, and we got some Russian spare parts, and we solved it, okay? Don't ask me how I got those Russian spare parts, but they were very expensive also. I guess it's from Russia, so far away. And the next 3 rats survived. So that validated our life support system in giving the exact grams of oxygen into the capsule. And instead of having a certified, very expensive air bladder that no one will sell you, and I don't think we can afford, so we use a Coca-Cola bottle. You see there? All right? I didn't ask Coca-Cola permission, so I took out the sign. Okay, then after that, after the successful red flight, we become more confident because now we know how to build that box that's behind the astronaut. Okay? And we went to Alice Springs to do the first drop test. So this confirmed our 40 drop test, proxy drop test in the hangar. We keep dropping using your famous physics equation, mgh equals to half mv squared, Anyway, never mind. You get the terminal velocity should be about 7 meters per second, and the G-shock should be about 5 to 6 G-shock. And we were very happy that this drop test validated those figures. Then we become braver. And then what happened? Oh yeah, and then we went back again every 6 months, you see, we go back. And this is a very famous flight because, not because of us, it's because on the 17th of May, NASA flew the same flight. So everybody was looking out for NASA balloon, and they saw our ADS-B call sign, high ball, you know. And I got calls from Canes, I got call from India, I got call from a few space agencies to say that, you know, well done. Because the difference is that if you look at the template of people with several of these government agencies, is that you have about 60 to 90 people flying them. But when you look at us through the satellite, you see 6 scrawny Singaporeans running around. Okay? So we are very SOP, you know. We SOP everything. Everybody cross-trained. Nobody's died, okay? And then it's really amazing that we did the 2 flights very successfully. One of the flight on the 18th went up to 31 kilometers for 7 hours. Believe me, if you stay 7 hours up there, you will feel very lonely, okay? So that's why later on we'll tell you that we will build the next capsule with a 2-seater. And if we have enough funding, we may even put an air hostess on board, okay? Engineering day, we came back, and then journalists put us on the newspaper and commented that our team, what we are doing is awesome. And I wanted to qualify that. I said that it's awesome not only because of the technical complexity, okay? Everybody say fly a balloon. You should try to fly this huge balloon. It's actually very difficult and very dangerous because of the huge size. You just need a gust of wind and everything will twist. So I qualified that it's awesome simply because it's done by a group of citizens. It's done by a group of selfless citizens who has used their own time and money to put this together and do it for our country. Because, and then recently again, the journalists printed that we do this to show other people that Singapore as a small country can do this, okay? But I corrected it again. It is not to show other people, no. It's our own golf game. We are a small country. It's to show ourselves that being a small country, if we have the grit, G-R-I-T, and the perseverance, we have the knowledge. We should try to apply to do it. Somebody said, if you haven't made a mistake in your life, you haven't risked doing anything new. Who said that? Anybody? Yeah. Yes. Oh, no. It is related to business for this case. Because in real life, believe me, business is more important than science and maths. Okay? No, totally is a wrong word to use. It is related, but it's on the business aspect. Because in order to make anything happen, let me ask you, is it the money first or the technology first? Yeah, exactly. So, just like Concorde. Concorde is a very incredible, successful technology project. But financially, it didn't work. I was behind Concorde when it crashed at Gonas, okay, in Paris. So long and short is that, let me come back to this first, and then later on, if you buy me a coffee, maybe we talk more, okay? You see, it's very commercial. Now, so as I said, it's awesome because of the people. The voyage is worthwhile because of the people you walk with. And in Singapore, we need to inspire these people. People who do not CYA, the foreigner may not know what is CYA, but it's a very famous Singapore word called cover your ass, okay? They are very KS, another Singapore word, kiasu, which is always afraid of every damn thing, okay? And the third one, sad to say, is our bicentennium, but still many people has this very colonial mindset, subconsciously or consciously. So, as I said, it's awesome because normal people like us, we are not a space agency. We come together, we do our best, we make mistakes, we learn from it, okay? To inspire our own people, not other people, okay? That we, Singapore, boleh. Then we become braver. We went back again. And this time we do a free fall drop test. We bring it up. Again, it's the equation of mgh equal half mv squared. Okay, if you bring up to 3 meter high, it will hit the ground at 7 meters per second. You can do the calculation later, okay? And we put egg trays, okay? You can see there's egg trays inside. Again, this has been tested many times, and I always teach primary school students that if you take 15 trays of egg tray, glue them together, you put 6 packs of them together, you get the teacher in the school that you hate most, okay, and throw him off from the 3rd story, mathematically he should survive, okay? So then, on February 2018, we actually went to US and we flight tested the spacesuit. So now you can see that every 6 months, you know, we push on and we push on and we push on. And you really think of it, in 2018 February, when we announced that we tried to do this, is really, borrow your term, stupid. Okay? It's because you think about it, at that point in time, we don't have approval to fly from space to space, which is a big thing. We don't even know whether we can buy a spacesuit, because I don't think you can buy from Alibaba, you know, or Taobao for that matter, okay? So, but yet we push on. That's to tell people, which I always explain, in life, logical thinking, scientific thinking, whatever it is not enough. Sometimes you have to feel on your guts. Then, I saw Samuel there. Then we went, May 2018, to Alice Spring to fly the man up, okay? And there you are. That is Smash. Smash is actually a very good name. Yip, he's our Yip man, okay? And his Chinese name, which I found out that day, is Chuang Yi, which means innovation, you know? So it's amazing, such a... And he's quite good looking, so, you know. And he's our F-15 commander, so, okay. Very good man, excellent. So these are all the heroes behind. This is another big lesson learned, is to tell you that when you do projects of such complexity, if you think that you can do it one man, you are already wrong, you are already failed. You need to leverage on giants, okay? Stand on the shoulders so that you can see far. Who said that? Newton, Isaac. And just now, if you have never made a mistake, you have never done anything new, and that's my Einstein. Okay, so you see, all the ladies, just like the 3 female rats, okay? So I always say, oh, you know, space rats are all female. Okay, I think only female can persevere and give birth, you know. So, there you are. So there you are, okay, so my email is there, engineers, without O, GoSpace@gmail.com. So email me, I will personally answer you, because we have walked the talk. We have proven ourselves. We have done our best, but we still need volunteers. We need people not only in maths and science. We need marketing people. We need graphics people. We need software people. We need people who are just brave, just come forward, you know, and help us to do this together. Okay, so we are going to organize one-day boot camp, free. It's important to say that, don't worry, come. And then we will all together try to hack the next mission again, all right, with new people, new ideas. So email me. And then if you want to look at the history of all the videos and all that, you can go to www.ghostspace.sg. All right? So with that, I will ask one of, actually there are a few brave guys here. I call Samuel to stand up first. Samuel? The good looking ones. Okay, yeah, give him an applause. Come on, come on, come on. No. He's one of them that have come forward to help us to do the marketing and branding and all that. And then we have one of our best engineer, okay? Kanesh, please stand up. Okay? Kanesh, if you watch the video, you realize that, if you think I'm awesome, he's even more awesome, all right? So with that, can someone come and play the video, please? I didn't know to record, you know. Thank you. So before I hand over the mic, I just want to present one more person, which is Esther over there. Esther. So she's the one that you see inside the film that's actually commanding the input of helium, 1,200 meter cube, which is a lot and a lot of money. There you are, Esther, who also came to volunteer. Okay, thank you.
Should I take this? Yeah. All right, as I get comfortable with these really cool devices here, okay. So I know how that works. How's everyone doing today? Good? Great? Awesome. I'm going to start off with a really short story about how we send an experiment to the International Space Station. I remember it was about 8 a.m. on a Monday morning. I was getting ready to go to work, and I received this text message from Howard. It said, "Singapore, we have a problem." I was worried because just 2 weeks ago, we had shipped our flight model to San Francisco. It had passed all of the prescribed NASA tests, and it was ready to go into space. To receive such a message was scary. Exactly about 8 months ago, 6 very enthusiastic students and 1 mentor, who happened to be me, we met at a very cool physics lab of the Singapore American School, and we dreamt a small dream. We wanted to send an experiment to the International Space Station. So all we had to do was pretty simple. We had to figure out some kind of experiment that would advance space research, put it into this 25 by 10 centimeter cuboid, and then after that, we were going to send this to the International Space Station. Before I speak more, how many people know what the International Space Station is? Please show me. Great. So for those who doesn't know, here's a cool fact. The International Space Station is a space laboratory that is orbiting the Earth at 400 kilometers from its surface. There are a couple of astronauts from America and Russia who live there, and they are carrying out all sorts of amazing experiments in space. So what we needed to do was put it in this tiny little cubicle, the experiment that we were designing, send it to SpaceX, where they would put it on the Falcon 9 rocket, and then after that, it would go to the International Space Station. So that's the picture of it. The astronaut there would take our experiment, put it into this power grid, and it would run completely automatically for 30 days. After 30 days, it would be brought down back onto the Earth in a resupply mission, and we would get the experiment, take out the data, and see if what we hypothesized worked. Sorry, I went too fast. Oops. That day, after getting that message, I called up the team leader and Howard, who was our counterpart in San Francisco, and I asked, "So, what is the problem?" And he said, "Guys, you know what? The experiment that you were supposed to run on space started running on Earth." We were shocked. We were like, "How did that happen?" He's like, "So, all of your experiments get put into this electronic box. And according to NASA, this electronic box needed to have the latest version of Windows software." We said, "Don't tell me we got bumped because of yet another Windows software update?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's kind of what just happened." So one of the space engineers, he was trying to update the software and consequently switched on the power on all of our experiments, and the experiment that was supposed to run in space started running on Earth. So we're like, "Okay, this is a big problem, what do we do now?" And he was like, "We'll send the thing back to you in 2 weeks. You send it back to us in 2 weeks, we do the tests again, and then it goes onto space. But mind this, you have to get it back in 2 weeks, otherwise we're gonna miss the launch." 9 months of effort of contacting various NUS professors, figuring out how to grow E. coli bacteria in space, doing circuit designs, coding it up so that the experiment runs automatically, was going to go into nothing. Everything dependent on these 2 weeks. We assembled again in the very same space lab, where it changed from physics lab to space lab now. And we wrote down all the parts of the experiment that we needed to redo. And the environment was very, very scared. I mean, all of us were very, very nervous on how we could even pull this off. We had never built this experiment in 2 weeks, and we had effectively around 4 days to do it. So we started, and one of them said, hey guys, you know, whatever the mishap happened, but at least we know it works. At least we know whatever we did in 9 months actually works. So we just need to redo it again in 5 days and figure it out. And that's what they all did. School students, they went to classes in the morning, did all their curricular activities, and in the evening, they stayed till midnight to figure this out and put everything together. After 2 weeks, we successfully shipped it back to San Francisco, and 2 months later, we assembled in our office, and this was projected on our screen. We watched the launch happen. This was one of the most beautiful moments in my life and the lives of the students who actually put an experiment to the International Space Station. What happened after that was pretty cool. Different kinds of papers, they screamed that we had become the first students from Singapore to send an experiment to space. And it was extremely humbling for all of us to have partaken in this beautiful history of this beautiful country. Lastly, I would like to say that us being an Astropreneurs Hub, all we try to do is try and democratize space. When I was in NUS figuring out how to make space my career, there wasn't much options, and there still isn't, but I'm glad to know that in 6 years, there has been a lot of companies that have come up, and we're having this amazing Moonlanders exhibition and talks that are happening in Art Science Museum. So we're moving into developing a more space environment in Singapore, as I would call. In the last 5 years, we have sent 5 such experiments to the International Space Station. We worked with a variety of students, worked with different complexity of experiments, and now, because so many people want to learn space, we also run a lot of workshops on how to do satellite development. This is what we do in Astropreneurs Hub. I'm Priyadashini Majumdar, and my only mission here in Astropreneurs Hub is to make space dreams come true. Thank you. If you want to know about the experiment, I can tell more because I never touched that. Yeah, sure. Okay, so the experiment is kind of cool. So you know, melanin kind of protects your cells, right? It's used from the sun and radiations and stuff. So space environment is very, very different from Earth, and space environment is very, very harsh. So if a person needs to do long-term travel in space, we have to figure out some sort of cream or something that will kind of, protect them from the harsh space radiation. So that was the real why behind the experiment. Our control was E. coli bacteria. So we took this little container, and then on one side of the container, we put E. coli bacteria with melanin, and on the other side, we put just a normal E. coli bacteria with nothing inside. And the moment the electricity powered into the experiment, what happened was all the food for the E. coli bacteria was pumped in. From a dormant state, it was risen, and we checked how fast it grew. So our hypothesis was that with melanin on E. coli bacteria, it should grow and multiply fast, because it's more protected. And the data showed the same. So what we had expected was correct. And that was one tiny step that we had actually taken towards human spaceflight. That was the experiment. Any other questions? Yeah.
What's your future plan, and how are you going to push for it to succeed?
Future plan for Astropreneurs Hub. We have a lot of projects coming up. We continuously work with students to do more of these International Space Station projects, and we're going to continue doing that for 3-4 years. So if you have any school who's interested, we can help you. Other than that, future is to get more into developing testing softwares for real launches and real people who need to make satellites, but they do not have the kind of testing systems or backgrounds to be able to ensure that my satellite's not going to mess up in space. So we're trying to simulate that on Earth. So there's a lot of stuff coming up. Sure.
There's hackings very widely around now. So how are you going to prevent that from happening and your data from being hacked?
So you see, this data that we would be using is more of data collected by previous satellites that have gone there. So let me give you an understanding. The data would be something like, if there is a solar flare in space, which is very commonly used data, how will my satellite behave in space? So it's not really private data. So we don't really need to worry about that. It's data that's there. It's just that, is your software or is your satellite software able to react well to it? It's all about that. Oh, I think there is quite some time. Don't worry.
May you elaborate on how you think space access can be democratized in the future?
Sorry, could you repeat? I didn't get you.
May you elaborate on how you think space access can be even more democratized in the future?
Sure. So when we speak about democratizing, it really starts from the fact that today, a lot of these space projects are done by space agencies, right? But this stopped when Elon Musk started SpaceX. And after that, a lot of companies started doing their own space stuff. For example, Planet. They started sending satellites up. Astro Digital, Google Skybox. There are so many who have started figuring out ways to monetize data from space. So this is exactly what we mean by democratizing. Getting it down to private industry, figuring out how space resources can be turned into a business, and that's why I'm here as a business strategist in Astropreneurs Hub, trying to figure out exactly this. So that's the whole point of democratizing. Why should only space agencies keep this knowledge with them?
Maybe to build on that, so who do you call when you want to include an experiment on the International Space Station?
Well, we have Faith here. She's from Astropreneurs Hub, and she does the marketing and communications for us. We have a website. You can definitely drop us a note. And when you say call, you want to know who to call, like a person, right?
What
Right.
company do you call? How do you negotiate, like,
Okay, there are a
prices?
lot of players that go into this. So if you've not heard about nanoracks, these guys have racks in the International Space Station. That's what they call nanoracks. These racks are the power grid that the experiments the experiments sit into. So that's one of the companies. Then of course there's SpaceX, who's doing the launch. And there are institutes who make this particular, who actually make the source code for this. And then there are other consulting providers like us who will help the ground level work to put all this experiments. So if you're asking who do you contact, there are a lot of players from start to end, each specializing in what they do. And you have to just partner with them together. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. So we're trying to keep this session intimate and talk about the different aspects of women being in the technology field and in the space field. We're hoping that through all this profiling, people will start to really don't assume that aerospace is a predominantly male career. In fact, if you were in a talk yesterday, I had a bunch of young professionals on the panel with me, and the majority of the panelists were young women. So I think we're making very good progress. We'll do the session for half an hour. I have some questions I want to ask Dr. Luosha, and then we'll allocate sufficient time for Q&A. But I think it's okay if you want to stop us anytime, to jump onto the same questions and ask from different perspectives. So, Dr. Luosha, maybe you could share some of your work in NUS that you are doing, and also why you picked a certain field.
Hi, I'm Luosha. I'm from National University of Singapore. So I'm working in the department called Electrical and Computer Engineering. So in our department, we are building students' CubeSats. So in the university, actually we have a CubeSat education program. So that is a 3.5 years program to train our engineers to be good and with some practical technical skills which can be applied to our satellite applications. So we have successfully launched our first CubeSat in the end of 2015. We call it Galaxy. So Galaxy, just now Priyaka was our students in the team. So talking about the engineers, female engineers in this business, at least two of us, plus the Priyaka, actually there's more working in the space industry in Singapore. Back to the university program, so currently we are developing 2 more CubeSat. We call it Galaxy 2 and Galaxy 3 with different applications. Our students are mainly from undergraduates, so they was with us start from the second year of their study. So most of them have interest in space. So they were working on the different areas of satellite. So when we talk about satellite, actually it's a very complicated system. So we have to break it into different engineering domains, such as onboard computer, electrical power system, thermal, structure, communication, and the control. So we educate our students with the design specifications. So they use the technical skills they learn in the university and practice during our satellite developments.
Are you conscious that there are more or less women in space, in aerospace today, before? Are the young female students under you self-conscious that they are the minority?
Nowadays, actually, in engineering, generally speaking, 30% of them are female students. So in our program, actually, most female actually is coming from computer engineering. So talking about percentage, I guess we also have 30% of female students working on the CubeSat development.
We were having a chat before this chat, and we agreed that actually it's not so much of saying that you must have half women and half men in a particular sector for gender equality. I think the crux of it is really that if you are good enough and you're passionate about it, you should not be stopped from doing it. Now, do you think there'll be a time where we might get more than 50% women in the engineering field, or what are your perspectives around this, attaching a number for equality?
Actually, that's my opinion. I think men and women develop interest gradually at the different areas. So, for example, engineers, maybe less women have interest in this area. So, my personal feeling is just follow your heart, choose what you like to do. And if you like engineering, just be a good engineer. I guess from my experience in the university, usually we don't really emphasize, women have to do what, men have to do what, but they have the equal chance to do the studies and research in the university. And all our female students actually are very good and qualified to be a good engineers. And many of them continue to carry engineering working experience after they graduate, and actually is very capable at their job.
How about certain subconscious, biasness? Do you realize them? Do you see them as a mentor to the young female engineers if they are subconsciously also discriminated?
I don't feel that much in the university. I'm not sure about the working experience outside. So actually, we have very good female students at our top student list. So I don't really see deliberately to see there's a difference between men and women in engineering studies. So again, just follow your heart. If you like it, and put more effort and time to make it better.
When we ran our very first space camp, which was modeled after the US astronaut training program, the very first cadet who won the best cadet and received an award from the former NASA administrator, Michael Griffin. She was a female cadet, and she performed so well consistently, both in theory, in practical, and in various, depart tests, that she won the overall best cadet. And consistently, we see that in a lot of the space camp, trying to get it's quite level playing field when you have to test a range of skill sets. And space technology, like many other sophisticated technology fields, are multidisciplinary. So you need to really tap onto different aspects of your brain, and it doesn't have room for a specific biasness. And I think that's what we are starting to see. And we're hoping that, in Dr. Luo Sha's program, that we also encourage more females to find it approachable to talk to you. So when you have students talking to you, I guess they are very focused on their work. They don't raise with you, I don't think this is how it's progressing as well because I'm a woman. You don't get such comments, do you?
No, I don't. But as you see, satellite is a complicated system. But generally speaking, from our experience, women will be more interested in computer software development and communications, and guys will be more interested in the structure, electrical power, and the control areas. So, they develop their own different interests in different areas.
Now, cycling back to the topic on the moon landing, which happened 50 years ago, did that have an impact on your interest in science and technology?
Oh, yeah. Moon landing is a very good applications to motivate our students, motivate ourselves as well. So you see, at the student program, we also have moon missions to encourage our students to redesign the satellite or explore some new applications that we can carry on in the moon. So it's definitely a very good example at the education point of view.
Do we have any programs in NUS that we're going to reach for the moon?
Yes. Talking about the design specifications, satellite that is used for the moon and used for the Earth applications are very different, right? So, for example, for the moon, for the Earth satellite, actually we are in the Earth's gravity field. But for the moon satellite, actually it's a moon gravity field. And the gravity field for the Earth and the moon are very different. And also you do the interplanetary mission, so you have to exit the Earth's gravity field and go to the moon gravity field. So there's a lot of orbital mechanics studies inside and mission studies for us to explore.
So do you think one of your projects one day would go to the moon?
Yes, actually we are very looking forward to do the study there. So last month we were there with the Israeli company, Space.io. They went to the moon, so we have a very good discussion to see whether we can, collaborate together. So the mission itself actually is very inspiring. So I believe, at the education point of view, can motivate the students from different levels and motivate ourselves to continue to do the space applications.
Do you think in the next 50 years we will send a Singaporean to the moon?
Yeah, I believe so. If you believe so, we put the effort, I guess we can do it.
Do you know that we have close to 700 astronauts to date? And of all those astronauts, a handful went to the moon, and none of them are women. They were always men. And I understood that traditionally NASA had a policy that went, we will not have female astronauts, and that was just that. And it was only after they changed it, they started to get more female astronauts into the program, but the moon mission has also died down, and therefore there were no women who has set foot yet on the moon. Maybe the first one will be a Singaporean woman. I don't know.
Let's see.
But so in the next 50 years, we will go beyond the moon, won't we?
Yeah, and then we can go to Mars. Mars mission has been done by some other countries as well, so we can learn from their experience. Okay, I believe that in Singapore, if we can dream it, we do it, and then we can achieve it.
I think we're hearing a lot of that about, from Priya's presentation about, being able to dream about something and then reaching for it. I think it's a really inspiring time.
Yes.
I have to be a bit Singaporean here and complain a little bit, because 12 years ago when we started SSTA and we started the Singapore Space and Technology Association, we did have people calling up and say, hey, are you a storage space facility? Because the concept of wanting to go into space was a little bit foreign at that time. But I'm starting to see in recent years, we have people engaging in very interesting conversations, very optimistic that they can have a part to play. And despite us not having a space agency yet, we are actually having a lot of activities surrounding the space program. And Dr. Luo Sha here has been participant of many programs. So what is the most interesting future program that you are embarking on?
Actually, we are doing, in the university, we're doing a lot of studies about the space applications. So generally speaking, we are focusing on three major areas. First one is remote sensing. That is one of the traditional applications. So remote sensing, it depends on your applications. Like for example, the camera used for the surveillance and the camera used to detect the pollution or to see the change of the environment or agriculture. So they are all different. So they will come down with the different design specifications of the satellite payload, even the satellite subsystems. So the second area that we are looking at is the communication. So communication it consists of two major areas. One is the IoT. So you heard about a lot of companies launch a satellite constellation network to form an IoT. So there's another application is the navigation, right? Our GPS and the Beidou. So these belongs to communication areas. The last one at the university, never we are do some scientific experiment. So you heard our quantum communication systems. You heard about some of the detecting the radiation in space. Okay, those are the scientific experiments for us to understand our space, understand the Earth better, and for some further applications that will be useful to us. So for the big satellite organizations, they also look at the applications such as answering our curiosities of the space. So they will develop a huge satellite that will do the interplanetary mission, go to the other planet to find out their properties as well.
I would also say that in the past, the Cold War and the rivalry between the Russians and Americans was a very great motivator in the space race and in accelerating many developments. We are in a relatively peaceful time. In absence of such a rivalry, you will find that a lot of these space developments are triggered by commercial applications. You know, I can do something with it about it. It has made our lives better. Because of the satellites, we have, live soccer games that we can watch. We can have GNSS capabilities that enables your Pokemon games. And a lot of these things are also triggered by pride in the country. You know, I want to be the first to send a commercial rover, a lander to the moon. And not so much triggered by the antagonistic relationship between nations. Now, do you therefore think we will go further in the absence of fear? Or do you think because in the absence of fear, we might take our own sweet time to develop, and therefore the progress in the next 50 years will be lesser than that in the past half a century?
I think Singapore is always very focused and know what they want. And Singapore, we know geographically is small, but space is unlimited. So I think with the Singapore development, I don't really think they are so competitive to mark themselves, have to achieve something as a nation, but of course as a nation proud. And Singapore is more focused on the applications. Yeah, what are useful for the country and what are useful for the people.
So the latest report says that the space industry is worth $360 billion US dollars, of which 70% are from commercial services and applications. So if your parents are going to tell you, hey, don't be an engineer, there's no money there, it's not. They are sorely mistaken. It's a very important commercial market. And in fact, they are touting that the first trillionaire on Earth will be someone who ventured into the space business. So coming back, would you encourage your child to go into the space technology area?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, my husband and I, both of us are engineering backgrounds, so I really encourage my kid to be an engineer as well.
And Dr. Losha is rushing back later because it's his son's birthday today, 50 years of the moon landing.
Yeah, you just rush here is because of your son's birthday, right?
Yes. So our kids have a very unfair and biased advantage here.
Yes.
Now, any words that you want to share with the audience about some of your journey as a woman in a very exciting and sexy aerospace industry?
Actually, personally, I don't feel there's any difference between men and women in this area. Actually, I got a lot of help from our male and female colleagues. So when I well, when I enter this area, of course, when we start to do something, there's a lot of accidents. Accidentally, I went to this area, so it's also because of my own interest. So I start to explore as a communication engineering first. So working in the Satellite Research Center in NTU for 1 year, involved in the communication subsystem development. So my supervisor, my colleagues helped me a lot. After that, I went to NTU to continue my PhD studies. Then after graduation, I went to NUS as a lecturer, and because of my satellite background, so they give me a chance to start a satellite education in NUS. And I work with all my colleagues, have male and females at the different areas, and bring all the knowledge together for the space applications. Along our studies, we also educations, we don't really make the difference as a gender, man or woman, to our students. So they have freedom to choose what they want to choose in our program. So a lot of students will come to discuss with us and on some simple but interesting applications that they can put into the design and have their own satisfaction. Yeah.
Actually, even though we don't have a space agency in Singapore, you can hear from Dr. Luoxia's program and all some of the speakers that there are many space activities and programs happening in Singapore despite not having a national space agency. The Agency for Science, Technology and Research also does a lot of developments in satellite technology. So I encourage all of you to really consider such a field if you're interested in. Just because we don't have a space agency, you should not assume there's no space program.
Actually, I was wondering how many of you know how many satellites has launched in Singapore as a Singapore satellites?
Yeah. How many of you think it's less than 5? Or any guess? How many? 18? No, 8. 8? We have about 17?
Yes.
17? Almost 17, 18 to date, since December 16 December 2015. From then on.
Although we don't have a space agencies, but the thing is that the society here, it's very unique. Everybody knows each other, so we can always, you approach us, we can always link to you to the right person.
And also, I think some of you asked about the International Space Station and how you could do experiments up there. We also partner with the JAXA. JAXA is the only space Asian country that contributed to the International Space Station. And so they have access and rights to do experiments on board the International Space Station. In fact, the scientific module in the International Space Station is built by the Japanese. So the space station has different parts, somewhere where you sleep, somewhere where they go to the gym, somewhere where they do navigation, and then where they do a lot of scientific experiments, that is the module built by the Japanese. And we have been encouraging Singaporeans to do experiments on board the International Space Station. Singapore have been doing that for a few years for now.
Even at the university level, we are collaborating with some other big agencies such as NASA. So actually we have an exchange program, send our students to work in NASA for internship for 6 months. So the students will have chance to talk to the NASA engineers and work on some very interesting programs. So last time, one of our students was in NASA for 6 months, so his program was a phone set. So PhoneSet was launched later, and they will still keep in touch to see the performance of the satellites. So also we have some exchange program with some other universities who are very good at the satellite applications and development. So all those actually, we can leverage our resources together, do some meaningful things.
I don't know if you want to have some time to take questions from the audience. Yeah.
I got 3 questions. Can I ask for?
Please.
First one is, I would like to ask if NUS is working together with NTU to push for Singapore space technology. Then the second one is, since the men have already went to the moon, why should female follow suit? We should try something even higher. And the third one, I forget already.
First one, actually, publicly, people always feel like NTU and NUS cannot work together. Actually, it's absolutely wrong. So we are working together very closely. Okay, both of us running the satellite program, and both of us have our different strengths. So for example, there's a collaboration between us and the LEA companies, right? They are doing the space propulsion. So we collaborate together to launch a CubeSat next year. So we also at the student level, we always organize our students to visit NTU testing facilities, and they are very happy to host us as well. So actually that is not really a problem, between NTU and AUS. Okay. Second one, of course, from my point of view is actually female and male have an equal right and equal chance for all the opportunities. So when men went to the moon, definitely women will go to the moon in the future as well.
But you're right, you don't have to follow. I think it's more about being able to access where you are qualified to access. And it could definitely be beyond, that's for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for the conversation. So it's very good to see more women out there talking about space and stuff. But okay, so I have two key questions. Number one, what will it take for Singapore to finally have a space agency? And the second question is that there is this perception that the barrier to enter the space industry is very high. Is that really just a perception, or is it the reality for the space industry in Singapore?
You can take the first one, I'll take the second one.
Okay, I just talk about my opinion. So space agency, actually even now we don't have a space agency, but we still have a very strong middle force to support our satellite education and application here, right? So, but we believe with the development of our Singapore space applications development, there will be a space agency coming along to foresee all and plan all the activities. Okay.
And I think if there's enough interest, that this is good use of public funds, because when you have a space agency, it's public funds. And think of yourself as a taxpayer. Do you want your money to be put into these things? I think these are things the government would have. Now, your second question about the barrier of entry to the space technology, I don't want to humble brag, but it is pretty tough. You should speak to the gentleman over there. In my role, I mentor a lot of technology startups. So it's pretty easy to get a lot of computer scientists to do some of these applications, to get users and acquisition. But space tech does have a few interesting layers of complexity. In that you are trying to move into atmosphere, for example, to an operating environment. This is 1G, and then or 9, 10G. Then when in a certain environment, there's less G. So you have to make sure your equipment works, and then there's less oxygen, more radio, solar flares. So that inherently is physically very challenging, right? How does one system survive in two different atmospheres? And then when you go further up to the moon, it's another ballgame altogether. And then when you put space travel into it, then how do you sustain human life in all these different environments? And then after that, you do testings and integration. So you are trying to integrate various things into one system. And it also is fairly expensive. So because of that, that barrier of entry is pretty high. So which is why traditionally it's a government's game, because the government are the only ones with the fairly deep, and only selected governments have the deep pocket to fund space programs. And when we talk about democratization of space, we're talking about billions of dollars coming down to millions of dollars. We're not talking about $550 for a space program. So there are many layers to making it fairly challenging, and therefore I really salute and applaud people who, like a Linear Space and Simon, who go into these with their eyes wide open and knowing how physically challenging, operating, business-wise also very challenging, financially also very challenging field. So it is true. Let's not kid ourselves. It is one with a very high barrier of entry.
So actually, exactly that's why I feel that's our educators' purpose here, is to educate our engineers to let them understand all the barriers. And actually, once you understand it, you know what you can do to overcome all the barriers and make it feasible for the space applications. So talking about the cost, actually developing CubeSat nowadays there's a small satellite called CubeSat. The cost will be a lot less than the traditional satellites. Is because we no longer use the military grade or space grade components. We use commercial off-of-the-shelf components, and also, it may not be nice to say that the manpower for the students to develop the satellite is free, because the purpose is for learning, not to earn money.
Passion is free.
Yes.
I think she had a question. Yeah.
Hi, yeah, thanks for being here. This is really interesting. I guess since we talked a lot about education and we're in an art and science museum, I'm curious about your thoughts on the role of art in education, not just visual arts, but literature and science fiction. I'm sure like a lot of you were inspired to go into space by watching these like Space Odyssey or like one of those films in the childhood.
So in this aspect, space has an unfair advantage. It's not a barrier. We get a lot of there's a lot of poetism around space, a lot of appeal, on reaching for the moon, myth and folklore. And therein, that is the good part about space. And it naturally draws people in because it actually resonates with many of us. You know, you're a young kid, and I'm sure you must have looked up at the stars, and first song could be Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars already. So in that case, actually, space does has an advantage in making sure in getting people somehow intrinsically attracted and excited by it.
Also, it's an art to design the satellites. You know?
Beyond art.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. My question is for Ms. Lynette. My daughter is an aerospace engineer, and she's in the last semester of Masters in Material Sciences in Queen Mary University, London. So when she comes back here, other than pursuing the field of her interest, which specific field in space sciences do you think has good job prospects?
Yeah. I'm also an environmentalist, and I feel that one important application of space technology, because of its ability to provide ubiquitous sensing and coverage, is in climate change. And I think this would be a job area for space science that would have very good prospects in terms of a career and in terms of the fulfillment to oneself in being able to contribute to better climate evolution on Earth. I think that would be something she should consider.
I'd like to ask, what is Singapore's niche in this space technology? Because there's no point doing the same thing as the other countries are doing, because we don't have the funds and the technology as well. Yes, thank you.
Well, there's a lot of applications for civilian, for military applications. So it's always nice to own your own satellite, to fulfill all those applications and to plan your own development. Yes.
I think a niche that Singapore has, you will find that is the talent story. Even you can go to any space program agencies, it's a concentration of highly intelligent people. In that case, despite it being called space, you want close interactions between people, like-minded people working together, dedicated on a project. Besides the launch pad, which is always in far-flung places, a lot of these things are highly concentrated. So literally, size does not matter in trying to build programs. In fact, you kind of want the lab to be close to where your testing is, and then you want your team to be close by to be able to solve the problems. So we don't have a natural disadvantage, and in fact, the ability to draw international talent, to work with local talent, is a very unique advantage, is a fairly unique advantage of Singapore.
How do you prevent brain drain of talents or talents being tucked away by other agencies which are able to offer so much better than what we have?
So in the university, we have to keep educating and help to train more space engineers. So as you can see, actually, space activities here is increasing. It's developing, but it's still small. So we are keep training our students to be a good engineer and enlarge the space society in Singapore. And other you are talking about why they don't go to other agencies. A lot of Singaporeans love to work in their own nations, to achieve something, make the nation proud.
Actually, in the traditional setting, a lot of space programs do hire only locals. So if you go to NASA, you need to be American citizens, not even green card holders. And then if you're in Japan, JAXA, then you need to be Japanese. So the good thing about in the absence of a space agency is a lot of programs are ground up, from the academic institutions, which has a natural draw to regional talent and international talent, and commercial programs, which is nationality blind and talent focused.
Maybe just one last question.
Because for Singapore, it's a unique place whereby our Singaporeans are not really Singaporeans, if you know what I mean. So yeah, so they can give up this if they want to go back to their home country. So how do you prevent that from happening once they learn what they want and they would use Singapore as a stepstone to go somewhere even further?
I think after this session, I'm going to run for politics. Thanks for the training. I think Singapore has traditionally been a resource-scarce nation. In fact, I like that story because in space, you are resource scarce. You have to ration your water, you have to ration how much you poo, how much toilet paper you use, you ration everything. It's a very similar story to Singapore, right? And how do you prevent that? I guess you just have to do the best of your ability to create it to be a good living environment. It's ultimately a human capital game. We want to enjoy in Singapore. We want to make sure this is a place where we have fair opportunities to access different technologies for men or women, or regardless of nationality. So therein, we just have to work very hard to make Singapore a place where people choose to come and want to stay. And even if they do leave for various reasons, I think that's something that is natural, for everyone. Right? Earth is really exciting, really pleasant, really benign, and very safe. But people want to go to the moon. So I think there's a part of us that wants to travel, and we can't stop that. But we just, as a country, have to do it to the best of our ability.